There are plenty of heartbreaking ways to lose a game of football, some of which are out of your control, like when you manage to hold a team to the 48-yard line with 2 seconds on the clock, meaning they'd have to attempt a record-breaking field goal in order to win, and then they do, and then they make it, and then you lose. But that's not a dumb way to lose, just a heartbreaking one. Today we're looking at what might be the 5 dumbest ways you can lose a game of football. Moving right into the 5th dumbest way in my opinion, let me take you to Falcons-Lions of 2020. This was a grinding matchup that seemed like nobody wanted to win. Being at almost a deadlock in the third quarter, they would exchange game-losing drives as the Falcons would turn the ball over on downs just for the Lions to drive 60 yards to miss a 46-yard field goal, which gave the ball back to the Falcons, where they would do nothing with before fumbling it away to the Lions in scoring position, and they'd take no risk, run as much time off the clock as they could in just 4 plays, and that led Matt Prater redeem himself with a 49-yard field goal to give the Lions the lead late in the fourth quarter. But here, the Falcons could do their thing and start slowly chipping away at what was left on the clock. With the ball on the 21, they would start that faithful drive to ice this game. Matt Ryan hands the ball off to Gurley as he picks up 8 yards, where the Lions are forced to burn their first timeout. Then they hold Gurley to a 1-yard pickup as they burn timeout number 2. And then the worst case scenario happens as Gurley plunges forward, fumbles the ball, then recovers it at the 10-yard line, successfully picking up the 2 yards they needed to get the first down. And with nothing but a minute left, they could ride into the They hand the ball off to Gurley and he runs forward, and they seem to be trying to let him score as he tries to fall backward to avoid the end zone but falls in anyway. Yes, taking the lead, but doing probably the only thing you could do in this situation to lose, which is give the Lions the ball back. You see, if the Falcons just took a knee 3 times, they could use a timeout here with 1 or 2 seconds left to kick an easy, low-pressure 30-yard field goal and all go home happy. But as it stands, this touchdown gave the Lions the ball back, where Matt Stafford would do Matt Stafford things and drive the ball 75 yards in 1 minute and 4 seconds to complete the miracle touchdown, which was only even possible thanks to this little mistake. And while this one is just a player having a not high football IQ moment in an intense moment in a game, I would say this is probably the most forgivable on this list. The next one, though, is a lot less forgivable, as we get to see the Falcons again to just hammer in the pain they're feeling from the very same season. But don't worry, this is the last time I'm going to bring you guys up this video. But here we are. They have a nice, healthy 2-possession lead over the Cowboys as they're punting with only 3 minutes left in the game. And in typical Falcons fashion, they're going to do the defensive equivalent of what Aang did in the Avatar: The Last Airbender when he figured out he was the Avatar, and completely vanish, allowing for the Cowboys to drive the ball down and score in only 60 seconds. But that's not the bad stuff. Stuff like that happens all the time, especially if you're the Falcons. I mean, hey, look no further than a Super Bowl 3 years prior, where some team was up 28-3 in the third quarter and somehow managed to lose. Who was that again? Okay, that's irrelevant, but as Brett Maher lines up for the super obvious onside kick, he hits this sort of spinning ball that is slowly but surely making its way to the 45-yard line, where it eventually passes. Both teams scramble for the ball, and the Cowboys come up with it, where they would finish this game with a quick drive to get into field goal range to score. And while you might say to yourself, Isaac, that's just an onside kick, it happens sometimes, the other team will come up with the ball. Well, you'd usually be right, if it wasn't for the type of onside kick this was, where you see this super slow moving onside kick is bad because, as you know, the kicking team isn't allowed to touch the ball until it travels 10 yards. Why it's bad is because most people forget that that same rule doesn't apply to the receiving team, which means that this slow moving, easy to down ball, they could have walked up and downed it no matter what, as soon as they realized it was going to cross that plane. And no Cowboys player would have even been able to contest it, because any movement to touch a Falcons player or the ball before the 10-yard line will result in a penalty, meaning the Falcons could have easily won this game if they had just been familiar with the rules. But not knowing the rules isn't the dumbest way to lose the game. Sometimes you know the rules and you try to use those rules in the stupidest way, such as in this back and forth game as the Patriots were taking on the Raiders with seconds left in the game and the score's tied up and nobody is particularly close to scoring. It looked like things were going to overtime. But the Patriots are going to have to run one more play because, what could possibly go wrong? Well, Mac Jones hands the ball off on a little draw play, and while there's a bit of a game, things seem to be winding down near the sideline until Stevenson's intrusive thoughts got the better of him and he pitched it back to Myers. Why? why would you do that? Just go to overtime. But hey, all things considered, it's a relatively safe pitch to Myers, until Myers also gets the intrusive thought bug. And why? What would possess you to do this? Myers throws it. To who? We can all assume it was supposed to be Mac Jones, but we'll never know what was going on in the head of Myers because this ball went to Chandler Jones. And maybe he just got the last names confused. They are both Joneses after all. But Chandler catches it, stiff arms Mac, and laughs his way to the end zone in what can only be one of the most brainless set of back-to-back decisions we've ever seen in one play. But we can forgive a lot in the name of players making a heat-of-the-moment decision. Do you know what we can't dismiss? Calls so bad, people will actually begin to question if you wanted to win this game or not. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, look no further than Super Bowl 49. Yep, Seahawks fans, you had to know this was coming. But this crazy back and forth Super Bowl is underway, and all is about to be said and done as the Seahawks have brilliantly driven the length of the field. And after handing the ball off to their stud running back, Marshawn Lynch, for a 5-yard gain, they have but one more yard to close and 26 seconds left before they win their second Super Bowl in 3 years. And fun fact, that very running back across 26 carries only had 2 runs this entire game that would not have scored on this very play. And you'd have to know that that also includes a play earlier on 3rd and 3 from the goal line where they handed it off to let him score. So here on 2nd and 1, presumably 3 attempts to jam this ball in for a potential score, and as the ball is snapped, Lynch, instead of taking the world's easiest Super Bowl win by receiving this handoff, is now running to the flat while Wilson is throwing the ball into the loving embrace of Malcolm Butler in arguably the most questionable decision in Super Bowl history. And while most people will say, well, this was a you look like a genius if it works, but look like an idiot if it doesn't. No. It's not that. With 3 plays left, a healthy amount of time, and a timeout, there was arguably no reason to do anything in this specific down aside from run the ball. And of course, it results in interceptions, the Seahawks losing, everybody being depressed. But as bad as this is, as dumb as this is, I cannot in good faith say this is the dumbest way to lose a game I've ever seen. And it's so much worse than you think, so bear with me on this one. Let me take you to Miami versus Georgia Tech of 2023. Miami played down to their competition for 4 quarters to no one's surprise, but they are somehow winning this game. And by all accounts, at this very snapshot, they have won. And what do I mean by this? As long as there's time on the clock. Well, I mean that they have the ball, there's 40 seconds left on the clock, and it's 3rd and 10, meaning that you can take the snap, run a single second off the clock, kneel it, and the time left in the game will run out before you get penalized by the delay of game, meaning that a successful QB kneel, arguably the easiest to complete play in the playbook, will literally win you the game right here. Now, if that's what they did, this wouldn't be a video, but instead, they choose to run a play, a running play, of course, where the runner doesn't immediately fall over at the first contact, but tries to drive his feet, which allows for defenders to get their stinky little fingers into the gaps and strip the ball out, which they do, turning what is effectively an 100% chance to win this game into very, very much so not that. And naturally, the only thing that can result from this is Georgia Tech putting together a quick drive to score, turning where Miami didn't just grab defeat out of the jaws of victory, but did an intense multi-hour surgery into the lower intestines of victory to find this defeat that we all had assumed was digested hours before and extract it from victory's lifeless corpse. But I'd love to hear what you think the most embarrassing losses are, and which ones do you think that I missed, and what should I include on the next one? Let me know in the comments, and peace.